So this is Dominic Cianciolo from NetherRealm, our voiceover and story director. Kelly, who is she's voicing Li Mei. Keep in mind, Li Mei is going to be announced at our panel, which is today at 3:15, over at 4:15. So if you can hold that back until then, that'd be great. That's the character that she's. If we can keep it just 2 questions each.
Starting this way.
So since you can talk a little bit about the new character, is there a new weapon or a new move or something that you could say is like your favorite, especially compared to the other characters you've
Do I have weapons?
Or like a...
You can.
Okay, so full disclosure, I don't even play video games at all. I know absolutely nothing. I also have menopause brain, so I forget everything anyway, and I probably shot this starting 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2020.
2020, from my closet.
Yes, I've seen more actors' closets in the last 3 years than I have.
And so there's so much of this that I don't remember. So I don't even know if I have weapons.
Yeah, I mean,
Do
say
I have
just
weapons?
right. Depends. To save gameplay questions for Ed, he's your guy for all that stuff.
Okay.
He can give you the most accurate information. So, yeah.
So then, talking about the story and the direction of, since we're kind of rebooting this universe, resetting it, whatever phrase you want to use, this is opening up opportunities for more Mortal Kombat outside of the games? Could this open up comics or more screen time for?
Yeah, there's certainly, I can't speak to what's happening outside of the studio. I mean, as the story director of the studio, obviously Ed is the big guy that kills it. I'm also consulting these things. There definitely seems to be some momentum building. Obviously, we have the new movie, which is being worked on. The various animated projects. I think, particularly with what we hope to be the success of MK1, we're going to see more content. It's really, really exciting.
For you, Kelly, you voiced various other characters in the past in Mortal Kombat. How does this one differ from those?
Well, I think the last time I was a bug or something, right? Wasn't Devora some sort of bug lady? I never really got to hear her until many, many years later because I don't play video games. And I was surprised to find out how much electronic, things that they did to my voice to alter her, right? So I think this one I'm far more recognizable as myself with my own voice, I don't know. What was the question?
Just how it differs from.
Right. Yeah. So this one just sounds more like me.
And then for you, Dominic, what are some of the challenges of rebooting a franchise that's very well known by now, and how you kind of take that on your own to add in Easter eggs or to divert what people think is going to happen?
Sure.
Just throughout the whole.
I mean, it's a lot. There are so many threads in the new game. Some of which are very similar to what was happening before, some of which are very different, and it's trying to be very intentional about the changes. So it just doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It was, and part of it also is just trying to create depth. But one of the things that I'm really proud of what we've done with this one is, in sort of seeing Outworld, seeing how it plays out or how the society is structured, just adding layers to sort of what it is and getting into those details in a way that we haven't before, and being able to create more differentiation between the characters and what their roles are within that society. I can't say there was anything that was like, oh man, we have to change X. It was more about, okay, we've got this reboot. This is the universe that Liu Kang has created. What would he do? How would he change that? And using that as the guidepost to sort of where things shifted. And from there, it's like, okay, what would be cool? Like if we tweak this with this particular character, like what does that unlock for us? What does that change? And will it be interesting for fans? Fans. Hopefully fans love everything. I know that there's some things that are going to be controversial, and hopefully it'll be as fun with them.
Well, they're all character driven, right? Every character has a background story, its own sort of style, and so I feel like this is a really great exercise in acting, right? It's exactly the opposite of the character that I did in X-Men, where I didn't say anything, right? And it was everything had to be sort of a character that was built just physically with no dialogue. This is just the opposite, right? Where all I have is dialogue and none of the physicalities. And so it's a really fun exercise for me as an actor to only have to concentrate on one thing. I don't even have to memorize dialogue. I love it. So I get to go in and I get to get his direction. You know, he tells me what's going on in the scene, what the relationships are, where we're at in the game, and you know, the dynamics, because every character also has an arc, right? And I get to just concentrate on that one thing. It's really sort of fun and refreshing as an actor to be able to do that.
To kind of play off that, so it's kind of refreshing. You've been part of so many amazing franchises. Do you like playing newer characters that are part of older franchises that maybe you can put your own take on it?
I do. I mean, especially coming into like X-Men, for instance. I think we made changes to the look of the character and made her completely different from the comic book. And then after that, the comic book started following what we did in X2, right, as Lady Deathstrike. So it's really an honor for me to be able to do that and sort of make that change that happens in the comic, you know, and I feel like every time I get to work on a big, you know, franchise sort of project like this, well, first of all, I always have to ask my friends who are all the geeks and game players and comic book geeks, right? And I'm like, who is this? Like, what am I doing? And what is this relationship? But then that's why also I have, you know, Dominic and, you know, his direction to explain everything. 'Cause for me, it's like entering a whole new universe and learning about all these different characters. It's crazy how much there is out there. Yeah, it's always fun. You know, I get the best job in the world. I mean, Meryl Streep can kiss my butt. Like, seriously, she might have the best roles in the world, the best acting in the world, but I have to have the most fun. Seriously.
Obviously, you've got such an amazing cast of characters. As you enter into this kind of world, are there any characters that you all look at and say, you want to focus on this character or that character?
Yeah, I mean, the construction of the roster, which of course we can't fully discuss today, was crafted very carefully. You know, that process of building that roster is not just driven from the story. You know, Ed has a kind of a vision of what he wants, and then, you know, he talks to the designers. Who do they want to bring back? Who are characters that, you know, maybe they got some new ideas for gameplay and that kind of thing they want to see, and then, you know, so he polls, you know, a lot of the key stakeholders in the studio as to who they want to see come back, and then, you know, and obviously story considerations influence that. But at the end of the day, you know, all that comes together, and then I have to then take that and say, okay, now that this is sort of our finalized group, how am I going to try to make all the story make sense with all of these people? How do they fit into that narrative? Yeah, it's people are very passionate. They're you know, they're pitched battles that go on like, no, this person has to be in, no, it has to be this person. Like the same way that the fans argue on Reddit about, you know, who should be in and who should be out, right? It's just as passionate inside the studio.
So Dominic, what were some of the bigger challenges with doing a reboot?
Oh man, it is that balance between familiarity and novelty. Like that to me is one of Ed's great gifts, is that he really knows how to balance that. So that it's familiar enough so people don't feel left behind. It's novel enough they feel like they're getting something new. And, you know, in this reboot, it was trying to find that level. You know, we talked about, you know, is this going to be as big of a reboot as Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica? Is it going to be a lighter reboot like the Kelvin time of Star Trek? And sort of where do we fit on that continuum? And then sort of once we sort of set the vision for, you know, where Ed wanted to see it sort of fall there, like, okay, what can we make these changes to the origin stories, to the narrative, that sort of fit within that and make it work? And it was a real big challenge, a lot of fun. Trying to make that happen.
Kelly, can you tell us, like, what are you most excited about with your character?
I'm excited for people to see this new character that hasn't been played ever or in decades.
It's been a long time. It's been a very long time.
And I think, I don't know, just, for people to see this new character. I mean, hopefully I brought something interesting to it. I've never played her before, so I've never played anything before, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know if it was new or old.
Dominic, Kelly, hey.
Hi.
Dominic, you first. I feel like you guys had a bit of a cheat code with the time travel thing.
I'm sorry?
I feel like you guys had a bit of a cheat code with the time travel thing in the story-wise.
Yeah.
You were able to like reset everything.
Yeah.
Like what's...
Oh, cheat code, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's very loud in here.
What is kind of like the next step now? Like now that you guys have made kind of Liu Kang like the focal point, and taking that shine away from Raiden, like what's the next step? Are we going to depower him as a god, or like I guess that's the story?
Well, I'm not going to reveal where the story goes, obviously. But what I can say is that whereas like say Mortal Kombat 9 was considered a complete retelling of the first 3 games, and you see all these characters get fully developed. Mortal Kombat 1 is a jumping off point. It's a starting point. So we're seeing characters begin these journeys to places that potentially we're familiar with based on sort of how things in previous lore, how things happen. Now, could we take a different road there? Could there be different details? For sure, but it's just it's this first step on this journey, right? We are beginning to explore this new universe by tweaking the game. Obviously, there's going to be a big bad. There's going to be big shenanigans happening, but it's just this reintroduction to the story and seeing people taking the first steps on new journeys. That makes sense.
Kelly, are you excited for people to beat on your character and murder her every possible way in this game?
Yes, I am. In getting murdered, I'm excited about getting murdered in the worst possible ways. I understand that this is one of the more violent games out there, and sort of proud to be part of that. I feel like my martial arts experience is really getting, used here, even though I don't actually have to do it. I get to sound like I do it and not have to pull a muscle. Yeah.
I know you were saying that you were directing out of the khaos. What was that challenge like, getting everybody to voice their characters and then putting them together in the story?
Oh man, it's and there are huge technical challenges. Obviously, just make sure everybody's closet sounds good enough to be in the game. That's key. We have a lot of people working on that. But I think it's a lot of it just sort of cramped space. I remember like the first time you were in it, like you were in like this really small, you only had like a really small space available. And
well, and also before the pandemic, a lot of us didn't have our own little studios, so we had to get like boxes of equipment shipped to us. So they would send people like messengers with a plastic box full of like microphones and like all these things to like, and with like a paper with directions on how to set everything up. And then we would have, I literally just bought like velvet curtains to put around me, and every once in a while I'd have to breathe, and then I'd come back in. But it was really a challenge, but also kind of fun to be able to have a studio in your apartment for the first time. Yeah.
The Lex VO is a very physical performance medium, and so I think it was tough for a lot of actors. They couldn't have a lot of space. Like you want to be gesturing, you want to be stepping into things, and if there just isn't that room,
I had to be sitting down
Yeah.
in my desk area. So all I did was I padded my desk area and put like some fabric on top of me, and then literally just had these velvet curtains wrapping around my back. And so there wasn't a lot of oxygen coming in. There was nowhere for me to move. I had to sit down the whole time and make sure I wasn't knocking things, So it was a bit of a challenge. Also, maybe my chair wasn't perfect, perfectly silent, or the gardener might have been working that day, or garbage pickup, like things that are just out of your control. There was so much that we had to work with, but we got through it, and then we were back in studio.
Last time you were in it.
What are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to seeing the fans? Like when this is released, what do you hope from the fans to take out of it the most?
Oh my gosh. You know, I mean, I'm hoping that the fans really embrace the cameo system the way the designers are designing. I think it's really incredible what they've done. You know, the game looks amazing, which people have already seen in the trailers. You know, the level of fidelity that's been achieved with the characters and the backgrounds and the details. I mean, if you I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but like in that Cage Mansion background that's already available, you can see on some of the gameplay videos things. You know, if you look closely, you can see the traffic on PCH behind his house, and at the nighttime you just see the lights. So it's like, dude,
wow,
what kind of it's crazy in a fighting game background. Yeah, I just love it. There's just all kinds of stuff like that all throughout the game, whether it's in the story, whether it's in the costumes, or the backgrounds, or the performances. You know, it just there's so much time and effort put into this that I hope people can spend the time with it to enjoy it.
Want to go back and just completely do a full reboot, like ignore all of the characters except for like a couple of the main ones, or has it always been we want this core group to always be forward and maybe introduce new ones later on?
You know, I think there's a certain core group that fans usually expect, but it's ultimately, you know, again, it's this sort of team decision as to where, you know, Ed wants to take things, but the designers want to take things, and so we go from there. I mean, are you ever going to see a Mortal Kombat game that doesn't have Scorpion and Sub-Zero in it these days? Probably not, but never say never. So,
and with the limited video game knowledge and all that stuff, was it weird getting a sheet saying, we want you to make noises of your chest being ripped open and lungs being
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think that there is another video game that I have done that has asked for that kind of noise, right? And you just have to get creative, right? Because who knows what that really sounds like? I mean, this game in particular is so gross. And the things that you, like the sounds that you had to come up with, and as Devora too, right? That was also very challenging as well. Like, what does a bug lady sound like? Who knows? So we had to make all of that stuff up. But it's fun. That's part of the creative process. Yeah.